What a year it's been. We know that we, along with millions of other people, have said this way too many times already, but seriously, 2017 has to go down as one of the greatest years in the history of the games industry. Literally every single month, we got to play amazing new games, spanning across multiple genres, across multiple systems, from single player to multiplayer. There was something for everyone, and all of it was mind-blowing. It's hard to think of another year when there have been so many contenders for not just Game of the Year, but also Game of the Generation. Which is why deciding which games were the absolute best of the best this year is so hard. Sure, it's hard every year, but this year it was even more so. Even still, somehow, after intense debates, votes, and discussions, we at GamingBolt managed to do just that. Here today, we're gonna take a look at what we decided were our favorite 25 games of the year, listing them out in order, from number 25 right down to our Game of the Year 2017. We all know what you're really here for, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Crash Bandicoot N.SANE Trilogy. It's a little hard to believe that 3 games that are by now 20 years old are still as much fun today as they were back when they first launched. It's a testament to both the original excellence in game design by Naughty Dog and the excellent remastering work done by Vicarious Visions. Crash Bandicoot N.SANE Trilogy is an absolute blast. A 3-game romp of jumping, spinning, and collecting Wampa fruit that is helped along the way with beautiful updated visuals and an ability to be challenging enough to make you want to rip your hair out. ARMS. ARMS is not the kind of game you expect to see when you think of the fighting genre, but this is Nintendo at their wackiest, quirkiest best, and when you play ARMS, you're in for a damn good time. This game is not without its flaws. It's lacking in content in terms of fighters and maps, among other things, but this is the kind of game that when it clicks, it really clicks. When you start playing ARMS, you might be baffled, wondering what the deal is with all these springy fists flying about. But before you know it, you'll be thoroughly invested in flailing your Joy-Cons around like a maniac. It's what Nintendo does best, and with ARMS, it's what they've done yet again. PYRE. Supergiant Games of Bastion fame came back this year with yet another RPG, and what a game it is. PYRE is unique, innovative, and utterly compelling. It has an unorthodox combat system, one that'll make each battle a blast to play through, while outside of battles, exploration is an absolute joy. It's helped along the way with an engaging narrative and a strong cast of characters, not to mention a vibrant and attractive visual palette. It's an utterly charming game that's unlike anything else that you'll ever play. Injustice 2. Injustice 2 is a game that delivers in spades, in terms of both quality and quantity. It's absolutely brimming with content, offering up something for everyone to enjoy, whether you are a veteran of the fighting genre or just someone who's looking for a pick-up-and-play experience. Its competitive play is solid, while it also goes out of its way to deliver an excellent, bombastic single-player campaign, with a story that's packed with fan service. It's bigger and better than its predecessor in every way possible, and quite frankly, the best fighter to have been released across all systems in the last few years. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight's biggest strengths are its ingenious level design and the staggering amount of things it allows you to do, without ever forcing you in any particular direction or prodding you towards any specific activities. Even dozens of hours into this game, you will continue to find interesting new quests, new places to explore, and new ways to try out your in-game skills and abilities. It may not be the flashiest game out there, but it certainly is one of the deepest and most engaging experiences that we've had this year. Forza Motorsport 7. A dream come true for automobile enthusiasts. Forza Motorsport 7 has to be one of the best racing simulations we have ever played. Turn 10 has managed to create a game that is meaningfully and significantly better than its predecessor, in spite of being the 7th iteration of the same formula. The attention to detail in this game is staggering. The roster of vehicles you can drive is mammoth, not to mention the fact that the game is just gorgeous to look at, especially on an Xbox One X. From the sound of your car's engine revving, to the way the water spatters on your windshield against a cloudy sunset, Forza Motorsport 7 will continue to surprise and delight you no matter how much you've played it. Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. Just like its predecessor, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus is everything you want a shooter to be, but everything you know a shooter probably won't be, especially in today's day and age. It is surprisingly unconcerned with having an online component, choosing instead to focus completely on its ridiculous, over-the-top, bombastic single-player campaign. For the entirety of its 10 to 15 hours, the new Colossus will consistently thrill and delight you with its adrenaline-fueled action, its brilliantly directed cutscenes, and its wonderfully written characters. There is a case to be made that its story goes off rails in the second half of the game, but when you're having this much fun mowing down Nazis, it's a little hard to complain about all the other stuff. The Evil Within 2. A worthy sequel to what is perhaps one of the most underrated survival horror games of the last few years. The Evil Within 2 is exactly what fans of the first game wanted it to be. A classic, intense, thrilling horror game. It doesn't try to reinvent the wheel, relying instead on tried and true gameplay mechanics. But when you see how expertly it blends action and horror, you begin to realize that it doesn't need to. The Evil Within 2 is the sort of game that'll constantly keep you on the edge of your seat, and any survival horror game that can do that is aces in our book. Metroid: Samus Returns. Not only is Samus Returns the first true Metroid game in years, it's also a return to the classic 2D side-scrolling game design that the series made its name with. It features the same ingenious level design that Metroid fans have become accustomed to, while adding notable new mechanics that thoroughly improve its combat. Metroid: Samus Returns is so good, it makes the Metroid fans in us want to pinch ourselves, just to make sure that we're not dreaming. Even this late into its life cycle, the 3DS continues to deliver excellent titles, and we tip our hat to it. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. 6 months ago, everyone was all too willing to discard Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle as yet another cheap attempt to milk money out of two popular franchises. We are glad all of us were so thoroughly wrong. Mario plus Rabbids is funny, beautiful, and dangerously addictive. A solid, grid-based, turn-based combat system forms the core of its gameplay, while exploration outside the battles is also a ton of fun. Kingdom Battle brings together the two popular franchises in unexpected and wonderful ways, and it's a must-play for all Nintendo Switch owners. Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Shadow of Mordor was one of the biggest surprises of 2014, being one of those rare games that properly makes use of a big license. So obviously, expectations from its sequel were pretty high. Surprisingly enough, Shadow of War came along and delivered on all fronts. Though veteran Tolkien fans may balk at the liberties the game takes with the lore of Middle-earth, it's hard to deny that as a game, Shadow of War is top-notch. It takes the best bits from its predecessors, the combat, the traversal, the Nemesis system, and it builds upon all of them excellently, delivering a game that is bigger and better in every way possible. Resident Evil 7: BIOHAZARD. The Resident Evil franchise was in the worst shape of its life not so long ago, but Resident Evil 7 came along and completely turned its fortunes around. It did so by shedding all the excessive fat the series had taken on over the course of its last few installments, instead focusing on delivering an intimate and intense horror experience in true Resident Evil fashion. The shift to a first-person perspective worked wonderfully, as Resident Evil 7 was able to provide the same sense of palpable tension that the series was known for in its earlier years. It's great to see a real titan of the industry returning to form so magnificently. PLAYERUNKNOWN'S Battlegrounds. PLAYERUNKNOWN'S Battlegrounds just came out of nowhere. It entered early access on Steam in March of 2017 and it never looked back. Sure, the game is technically in an unfinished state, and it doesn't currently have a whole lot of content on offer, but the one thing that all video games should do, PUBG does to perfection. It's an absolute blast. PUBG's popularity has spread like wildfire ever since it was made playable to the masses, to the extent that Battle Royale modes have now become the next big trend in the industry. And if its future content continues to deliver the same level of quality that the game's current version does, it's only going to become bigger and better. Yakuza 0. If you're a longtime fan of the Yakuza series, Yakuza 0 is an absolute treat. If you've never played a Yakuza game before, Yakuza 0 is the perfect time to jump in. It truly is the best of both worlds, and it's way better than it had any right to be. This right here is a mixing pot of stylish and satisfying combat, a staggering amount of things to do, a surprisingly well-told story, and an excellently realized setting that oozes charm and atmosphere. At the beginning of the year, considering the massive releases that were due for launch, not many people would have expected Yakuza 0 to be among the best games of the year, but we're glad that it surprised and delighted us the way it did. XENOBLADE Chronicles 2. XENOBLADE Chronicles 2 is a ridiculously ambitious game, aiming for unfathomable heights in a number of areas, and surprisingly, it manages to surmount those heights in almost every instance. It is a game that holds nothing back in everything that it does. Its world is vast and beautiful, its story complex and layered, its combat intricate and addictive. It is, as a result, one of the best JRPGs of the last few years. Even though 2017 has been crowded by countless unforgettable milestone releases, XENOBLADE Chronicles 2 still manages to stand out as one of the best games of the year. Prey. Prey is not your conventional first-person action game, and that is a fact it revels in. It's a spooky, intense experience that takes mechanics from several other popular games, puts its own unique spin on them, and brings them all together for an unforgettable journey. Talos 1 is the kind of place that'll keep you on your toes for the entirety of your playthrough, and Prey's blend of exploration, stealth, and combat ensures that it's a playthrough you won't soon forget. Prey isn't without its faults, and many of these faults are not easy to ignore, but taken as a whole, it's a stunning reinvention of the franchise, and a game that stands out as one of the best of 2017. Divinity Original Sin 2. A captivating setting that is brimming with rich lore, a memorable cast of expertly written characters, a wealth of things to do, both on the main path and off it, a spate of choices to be made, each of which really has real consequence on how the story pans out. These are a few of the countless things that make Divinity Original Sin 2 an instant classic. It builds on the foundation laid down by its already excellent predecessor in stunning ways. For the entirety of its 70 to 80 hour long playthrough, whether you were playing the main story or taking part in the equally well-designed side quests, Divinity Original Sin 2 will astound you time and again with its sheer brilliance. It's an amazing achievement by developers Larian Studios and will always be remembered as one of the greatest role-playing games of all time. Assassin's Creed Origins. Just when it was starting to look like the Assassin's Creed franchise had finally hit a slump it wouldn't be able to recover from, Origins came along and reminded everyone just how captivating this universe can be when it wants to be. Developed by the same team that made the excellent Black Flag, Origins is a complete reinvention of the series, having turned it into a fully fledged, massive open-world action RPG. Ancient Egypt is a wonderfully realized setting that is full of interesting things to do. The revamped combat is brilliant, and the game is unconcerned with the convoluted narrative threads that bogged down previous games in the series. Assassin's Creed Origins is still a game that could have done with about a year more of polishing and refinement, but even in its current state, it stands toe-to-toe with the best experiences this series has had to offer in its 10-year lifespan. Nioh. There's no doubt that Nioh is cut from the same cloth as From Software's Soulsborne games, like so many games these days are, but Team Ninja's Megaton also manages to carve out an identity of its own. Its refusal to take itself seriously and present its outlandish story in fun and mischievous ways is a refreshing change of pace for the genre, and its fast-paced and challenging yet rewarding combat makes it an addictive and compelling adventure from start to finish. On top of that, Nioh boasts excellent level design, exhilarating boss battles, and a dizzying array of options, all of which come together to make what is perhaps one of the greatest games of the current console generation. Cuphead. The moment we first laid eyes on Cuphead, we fell in love. Much has been said about its beautiful, vibrant 1930s animation art style, but no matter how much you praise it, it can never be enough. More importantly though, Cuphead is as much of a blast to play as it is a visual joyride. It's an extremely challenging game, one in which you will die, a lot, but also one that will never make you feel like you've been cheated. No matter how many times you die, you'll always want to give it one more go, and the more you play Cuphead, the more deeply you'll fall in love with it. The sheer effort that has gone into crafting every nook and cranny of this game is commendable, from its presentation and its sound design to its excellent controls and its memorable boss encounters. Cuphead is a true-blooded run-and-gun platformer that'll stay with you long after you are done with it. Super Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey lives up to its name in every sense of the word. It's an Odyssey like no other. It's a glowing illustration of what magnificent things Nintendo can achieve when it lets go of any and all restrictions and decides to embrace its unhinged craziness. Odyssey is a celebration of all things Mario, a masterclass in level design, and if we're picking our game of the year on a criteria of smiles per minute, this game would be ridiculously ahead of all competition. No matter what crazy new world you visit, no matter what new thing you throw your cap on and transform into, no matter what activity you take part in, Super Mario Odyssey never stops being a blast. This is the kind of game where you'll be rampaging about as a T-Rex, leaping over chasms in low-gravity environments, jumping over skipping ropes, and transitioning from 3D to 2D platforming all within the space of minutes. And the entire time, you'll have a goofy, ridiculously large smile plastered across your face. Super Mario Odyssey will make you feel like a kid in the playground again, and we absolutely love it for that. NIER Automata. NIER Automata subverts tropes and expectations in every way imaginable, showing a streak of eccentricity and genius that you don't often see in this industry. And these traits show themselves in every aspect of the game. Its inventive and varied level design is never afraid to switch things up, to the extent that the game all too often completely changes genres. Its story is grand and ambitious and is told with surprising depth and delicacy. Its soundtrack is completely out of this world, a chaotic and unearthly mesh of various genres. Its combat is fast-paced and exciting, in true Platinum Games fashion, and on top of all of that, this is a game that gets better every time you finish it, with each ending showing something different, revealing new truths, and giving greater meaning to past events. NIER Automata is an absolute gem, defined by bold originality and brave ambition, and it's an experience that'll be remembered as one of the best this generation has had to offer. Persona 5. In a time when the masses were starting to believe that there was no place in the industry for niche, turn-based JRPGs, Persona 5 came along and stunned everyone with its brilliance. It takes the blend of dungeon crawling, life simulation, and role-playing that was introduced in Persona 3 and improved upon in Persona 4 and perfects it. Persona 5 will keep you glued to your television for a staggering playtime of close to 100 hours, and incredibly enough, it'll never feel like it's overstayed its welcome. This is a game with heart, a game with style, a game that exudes supreme confidence in everything it attempts. From its memorable cast of characters to its captivating narrative, from its addictive and challenging combat to its ridiculously engaging side activities, the sheer brilliance on display here is not easily found in any video games. We have, however, found it here, and it's made us cherish Persona 5 that much more, to the point that we can appreciate it for what it truly is, one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is the kind of game that no one ever thought Guerrilla Games, a studio that was known for making grim, linear first-person shooters with little to no color, would ever make. And yet, they did. And looking at how expertly they went about it, it's hard to believe that this was their first attempt at making anything that isn't a shooter. Horizon Zero Dawn is breathtakingly gorgeous. Its action, thrilling and exhilarating. Its story, astonishing and engrossing. Its world, hauntingly beautiful. It expertly weaves an extremely intelligent tale, one that starts out humbly, but escalates more and more as you get closer to the ending, building up to an amazing finale that reveals some shocking twists and revelations. Its combat is amazing, with its mechanics being complemented perfectly by the imaginative and innovative enemy designs. It has a world that begs to be explored, not just because it looks so damn good, but also because it's packed with excellent optional dungeons and side activities. It's a stunning RPG debut for Guerrilla Games, a true benchmark title for Sony's first-party lineup, and a game that immediately joins the likes of Uncharted and The Last of Us right at the top of PlayStation's pantheon of exclusives. GamingBolt's Game of the Year: The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. In a year that was as saturated with generation-defining experiences as this one was, it should have been hard for any game, no matter how great, to stand head and shoulders above its competitors. But that is exactly what Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild does. It's that good. This is game design perfection, a shining example of emergent gameplay done right in an open-world experience like no other. Breath of the Wild has radically reinvented the franchise's formula in a way no Zelda game has ever done before, shedding so many things that a year or so ago it would have been hard to imagine a Zelda game without. Gone are the traditional dungeons. Gone the linear story-focused approach. This is Zelda in a post-Skyrim world, a game that embraces the potential of player-made experiences rather than scripted ones, and it's all the better for it. And in spite of such a major overhaul, this is still a true Zelda experience at its core. In Breath of the Wild, strings of interlinked mechanics all expertly weave a marvelous web. Thanks to its weapons deterioration mechanics, combat is always a challenge, so that even encounters against the simplest enemies are thrilling. Thanks to its beautiful visual aesthetic and impeccable world design, exploration provides countless hours of pure, unadulterated fun, so that around every corner is something new to see. Around every bend, something magical to discover. Thanks to its ingenious physics systems, the simple act of interacting with anything and everything you see in Hyrule can lead to moments that will make you gasp. Moments that will leave your jaw hanging wide open. Does Breath of the Wild have flaws? Of course it does. There are some who would argue, not without merit, that its story and storytelling leave a lot to be desired, while Zelda purists would point out that the lack of traditional dungeons and memorable boss fights, both hallmarks of the franchise, doesn't do the game any favors. But once you spend over 100 hours traipsing, climbing, shieldboarding, and paragliding across every corner of Hyrule, and realize that there is still so much in this game that can surprise you, you realize that in the grand scheme of things, such flaws don't really count for much. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild is an unabashed masterpiece, and not only is it the best game of 2017, it is also one of the best games to have ever been created.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.